everyone, welcome to Land and Sea. I'm Jane Adey. Today, a show from 2010. There's a rocky headland on Newfoundland and Labrador's Avalon Peninsula called Mistaken Point. In foggy weather, mariners would often mistake it for nearby Cape Race and run aground on the rocks. Today, those rocks make Mistaken Point famous, not for shipwrecks, for fossils, some of the most unique and important ever found. Etched onto two shelves of stone are the remnants of ancient creatures that lived more than 560 million years ago. The Mistaken Point fossils are like cryptic messages from the distant past. Here's former host Pauline Thornhill with Mistaken Mystique.
All along the road to Cape Race, slabs of rock rise from the sea like tilted steps. Two of the most remarkable shelves of stone are at a place called Mistaken Point. There are secrets here, and when the sun is at just the right angle, it reveals them. Images emerge from the rock face, fossils, thousands of them. The closer you look, the more you see. These stone etchings are cryptic messages from the past. The fronds and spindles were once living things, primitive ocean creatures more than 500 million years old. This is one of the most unique fossil beds ever found, and it's as if nature has shaped it into a perfect shrine. Kelly Bruton is a St. John's artist who feels the lure of Mistaken Point.
I've been here a number of times now, and the walk out here is so incredibly meditative. And when I'm out here, I just feel very calm and very connected. It's an extremely gorgeous place. I mean, look at it. It's so beautiful.
It was the beauty that first seduced Kelly, but it was learning about the fossils and the geology of this place that kept her coming back.
I realized that it was an ancient ocean bed, and that it was at one time connected to Africa. And then the place started to have really emotional content for me, because I had moved to Newfoundland from living in Botswana. And so I was moving back to my homeland, at least Canada, and I felt a certain comfort by being here because it had this ancient connection to some place that had such a profound effect on my life.
Kelly was a teacher in Africa when she met her husband, a Newfoundlander. They moved to St. John's 16 years ago. Some fellow artists introduced her to Mistaken Point. Since then, this place has been her inspiration. On her visits here, she gathers raw material, using these natural works of art to spark her creativity. Then she transforms cold gray surfaces into warm and vibrant textiles. In her home studio, she sews and beads, interprets and translates. Layering is extremely important to Kelly's technique. First comes the hand stitching of each individual piece of fabric. Then she uses the machine to build texture, to give the canvas more of a three-dimensional quality. This piece took 6 months from start to finish. It's called, appropriately, Mistaken Point.
It's hard for me to even think about how old 570 million years is. And so when you're trying to deal with something so ancient, I think that the repetitiveness and the stitching and the layering are like the passage of time. And I'm recording my process as an artist, and the time that I'm working on it becomes very evident. When I'm stitching around it, it starts to take the form of it and build it up and give it that relief, because that's the most amazing thing about Mistaken Point, is the fact that the fossil forms that are there are so visible, and you can actually, you know, lay your hands down and touch the surface.
Mistaken Point is one of the few places in the world where you can see fossils like these in their natural setting. That is, if you're willing to trek for 45 minutes across the Barrens. Still, people from all over the world come here, and in greater numbers than ever before. Last year, more than 800. But the fossils are fragile, so in 1987, this was made an ecological reserve. Now there are strict rules about visiting, guided tours only. And special booties are required if you want to walk on delicate surfaces.
So you look down and you can see them right there at your feet. They lived on the deep ocean seafloor. So that means they were too far down for light to reach. So they couldn't have been plants because they wouldn't have been able to photosynthesize. So these are believed to be the first animals ever discovered.
Valerie Sullivan is from nearby Calvert. She's been a guide here for 3 years.
Mistaken Point is the only place where you can come and see the whole community of these organisms, and they're preserved so well. Like, there's nowhere else on Earth where you can see the whole community and the whole ecosystem. And just when you're standing here, they're just everywhere. They're beneath your feet. There's nowhere you can stand without looking at them. The lighting is really good today too. So they kind of jump out at you.
The fossils aren't that easy to see when it's overcast. In fact, they were discovered by accident in 1967 by a geology student from Memorial University.
He just came here and sat down to eat his lunch because he thought it was a nice flat surface to sit and eat his lunch. And when he looked below, he saw all these fossils.
Once your eyes adjust, they're impossible to miss. There are more of these kinds of fossils and more diversity than anywhere else on Earth.
People are speechless sometimes. Like they don't know what to say. They just say wow a lot. Because it's hard to believe that things that are so old have been preserved for so long and so well. The reason that they fossilized is because there were volcanoes, and when the volcano spewed its ash, the ash covered these organisms and it covered the whole community, and the impressions were embedded into the sandstone.
The ash that killed the organisms also miraculously preserved them. In some places, that layer of ash is still clearly visible, something that's very appealing to a textile artist.
And I added the ash because to me it's like the ultimate textile. The addition of the black onto the side is the ash that would have come down and trapped these organisms and left them so intact. And then that's what's actually getting worn away so that we can reveal it. That was like a shroud that came down and trapped everything. Because of that ash, we see something that's very fragile and that would probably not be so well protected if it hadn't been for that kind of cloaking of it. Being here reminds me of how fragile life is.
The fragility of life, the mysteries of creation and evolution. Deep thoughts inspired by the fossils and their magnificent setting. There are fossils strewn all along the coast of Trepassey Bay, easy to reach, an amazing open-air laboratory for scientists. Guy Narbonne is a paleontologist from Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. He and his graduate students come here for a few weeks every year to gather data. He has written dozens of papers about the fossils, and they've been published in the world's most prestigious journals.
When I sit on this surface, I am sitting on a 579 million year old seafloor with all the creatures over there still around me. There is nowhere else in the world you can do this. These are the oldest large animal-like creatures in the world. This is one of the very few places where you can actually look down on the surface that you're standing or sitting and see the community all around you.
Just what exactly were these ancient creatures? What did they look like? What did they eat? What was their environment like? These are just some of the questions Narbonne and other scientists are trying to answer.
It shows a variety of structures. There's the ball at the end. This would have been a circular holdfast buried in the sediment. The stem comes out like that. And then we can see this ridge about the size of a pencil. And that would have been filled with water.
What is known is that these creatures once lived at the bottom of a very deep ocean, anchored to the sea floor. Some of them probably looked more like plants than animals. Then they were wiped out. Yet their images survived as a tantalizing snapshot of a distant time.
Remember, we were looking for things about the size of our fingernails. Look what we found. Tracing out the middle of it. Still goes. Still going. It dies off somewhere about here. It's 1.68 meters long. This is, bar none, the oldest large complex fossil in Earth history. About 579, so 30 to 40 million years before the base of the Cambrian, about 8 times as old as Tyrannosaurus rex.
This is the longest fossil of its kind and the oldest one ever found.
We're all interested in beginnings. And all of us are very happy to look through some old photos in an old binder if we're told that these might be some of our own ancestors. What we're looking at here is the beginning of complex life, the beginning of animal life. These aren't even true animals, they precede that. But this is the first crude beginnings of animal life as we see it today.
The scientific name of this fossil is Trepassia wardae. Trepassia for the area and wardae for ward, named after a local family. Kit Ward's family. Kit Ward just might be Mistaken Point's biggest local promoter. She's a retired teacher who lives here in Portugal Cove South. She can't help but sing the praises of the fossils.
When I saw them for the first time, I was utterly amazed. I just couldn't believe the number, the diversity, and the whole surface was like of something on another planet. And when they stood out with the light, it was almost something spiritual. It was I guess it was an experience mystical in nature. As I said a little bit earlier, it was September the 4th, 1998.
For more than 9 years, Kit has been involved with the Cape Race Heritage Association.
And that very summer that we started up, we had just opened a little visitor center in the fire hall in Portugal Cove South.
On this Mozzie Day, Kit has been recruited to address a select group. Under that hood, Newfoundland Environment Minister Charlene Johnson. She braved the weather to take this tour. It's all part of a campaign to get World Heritage status for Mistaken Point. The reserve is on Canada's tentative list of World Heritage sites. Now the push is on to get it officially recognized.
It's a fantastic specimen.
Kit is telling the story of how she and her son once intercepted some international fossil thieves.
The fossil looters had cut all around these edges, the 4 edges, as you can see, and they were just about to go underneath when we intercepted them. That was a lucky move.
A move that earned the Ward family the distinction of having their name attached to the oldest known animal fossil in the world, Trepacia wardae.
The fossils themselves have a great intrinsic value. They're beautiful, but also economically, there could be wonderful spin-offs.
Some of those economic spin-offs have already been realized. The Edge of Avalon Visitor Center already attracts tourists who are interested in learning more about the area, and there are seasonal jobs for 15 people. As a World Heritage Site, things would only get better.
The hope would be survival, first of all, but growth. And I'd like to see a lot of people come and appreciate what we have here and stay. Hopefully some of our young people will stay and the community will grow more.
The most common is called, its common name is called a spindle.
More than 20 different species of fossils have already been identified at Mistaken Point. Some don't yet have scientific names, others are still being discovered.
Spindle and feather duster, and this tall one here, they named that the Christmas tree.
Guiding is more than just a great job for Valerie Sullivan. She's also come to realize the significance of the fossils.
It's wonderful to be able to stay at home and work at home and to be outside all day. But more than that, they're so important to the scientific community, and to see people from all over the world come here to study them, it really opens your eyes. It really makes you understand how important they are to all the researchers around the world.
These 2 students from Queen's University are on their first research trip to Mistaken Point. They'll make a plaster cast from this latex mold so they can study the fossil back at the lab. The original stays here, preserved in its natural setting.
This bed is the one that has more than any other anywhere.
This group is from Oxford University in England. Alex Liu created quite a scientific stir last year when he published a paper saying one of these creatures was actually able to move around on its own. There are still many more questions than there are answers about these fossils. It will take decades of research and debate to find out even the most basic information. In her own way, Kelly Bruton is searching for answers too.
People are studying what's actually here, and there's still so many questions and so many unknowns. And I think that's part of what we have to accept as life. And we have to accept death as part of life as well. Wow, it's amazing.
So this bed is known mostly for things called pizza discs, which are these lumpy things.
It's not exactly clear what these lumpy things are, but there's been lots of speculation.
Another idea is based on a few specimens on the other end of the bed, where you get the pizza disc attached seemingly to this long string. They've given the idea that they might actually be balloon-like and sort of floating above the seafloor with this tether attaching them at the base.
Yeah, that's how I think about them. You know, that they're kind of globes kind of moving around. Do you ever get frustrated by all the unknowns?
The artist and the scientist taking different paths to reach the same place. The scientist by meticulously collecting and analyzing data. The artist by using the fossils to fuel her imagination, each trying to imagine a lost world.
This particular architecture that the Earth is offering, I think, has a resonance because it's the beginnings of life. And I'm thinking about the beginnings, and also I'm thinking about what we don't know and accepting what we don't know. But when I make my work like this, I can create everything I know. I can create my world right here.